Hey guys, welcome back to another update. It's Saturday, August 10th. Everything was going well in the garden, and then we had a little bit of a disaster. So let's go see what happened. So a couple nights ago, we had some deer come through and completely ravage our tomato plants. I've never known deer to go after red tomatoes, but you can see they tried them, didn't like them, and went on to try other ones. They ate a little bit. They took out quite a few of the more ripe fruits. Nibbled a little bit of the leaves. So that was quite disappointing. They took off quite a few cherry tomatoes that were almost ripe. So they set us back quite a few weeks. We'll see if there's enough time left in the season to get some tomatoes. So gonna have to put something up so that the deer leave these plants alone. Again, they're not I've never had any trouble with deer going after the unripe tomatoes. But first time for everything. This is one of the plants where it's not their first go-to food, but if they're hungry enough, I'm not exactly sure why they would be hungry in the middle of summer, but if they are hungry enough, they do go after green tomatoes. But again, lots of fruit still set. Hopefully there's enough time left in the season to get some ripe tomatoes. Now in our one squash bed, the one that had that one pepper plant in it that was producing was stripped clean. Again, the deer came through and just picked it clean. Again, it's not their primary, not their favorite food, but again, if they are hungry enough, they will eat it. They also did attack the new cherry plants. That one was hit especially hard. Again, not their primary food, but they seemed to be hungry that night that they came through. So I am gonna have to put up some type of netting to discourage them from eating more food. Squash plants in this bed are doing quite well. There's two set there. That one is getting quite large. There's another one over here that's set. There's two more over here that are set. So it's going to be, at least if everything keeps going the way it's going, a very good year for our spaghetti squash. Butternut squash are taking a little bit longer to get going. You see the flowers are just starting to form there. And there's a female flower there. You can see the small fruit on the end. I've never known deer to go after mature squash leaves. I think they're just too prickly for them. They just don't like them, but they will go after the young fruit and the growing tips. So far they've left them alone, which is good. Now further up in this bed, the deer did stick its head in and prune off the top of that beet. Now beets or the beet tops are one of their favorite foods. So if they're not covered, they will go in and eat all the beet tops. The guy just stuck its head in and had a little snack, but the rest of them, because they were covered, survived and are doing quite well. We're going to be pulling these out within the next couple weeks, and then pickling them, because this is a lot of beets to be ready all at once. One more romaine. Unfortunately, we were out of town for a couple days, and in that time it bolted. So we are going to pull it out. Again, these leaves are still going to be really good. No problem there. But if we did leave it any longer, there would be a flower stalk and flowers that would, or at least one flower that would come out. Now since I've been through and taken the peas out, the pole beans have come along and now they're flowering and starting to produce fruit. You can see the baby pole beans there starting to form. This is the plant that seems to have matured the fastest, so we'll be coming through and doing our first picking of beans. Half of this row is green, the other half is yellow, so this side on the left are green. I find they take a slightly longer to produce and to grow than the yellow variety. Yellow variety is over here. They'll turn completely yellow when they are ready to be picked. So this one will turn completely yellow in a couple more days. The deer did come through here. This is another one of their favorite foods. The deer did come through and eat the plants that are growing along the fence. I grow these intentionally because I know the deer will eat them and then leave the main crop that are on the canes, leave that main crop alone. You can see they come through and trim the leaves off, but that's okay. I planned for that because I know they are quite relentless when it comes to beans. A couple more broccoli heads that'll come out from this bed within the next couple days. Again, what we don't eat, we blanch and freeze for broccoli, so because it is a lot, but they freeze very, very well, so it's not a problem. Brussels sprouts, again, just sitting there growing. Sprouts are getting a little bit larger. You can see them at the leaf nodes, but still a long way away from harvest. Onions now starting to bulb up. A lot of them have fallen over. Not exactly sure why, if that's just part of the plant's life cycle. I know some varieties of onions will automatically bend over their stalks when they're done. Basically, you just leave them in the ground because they will still put weight on the bulbs after they have bent over like this. So I'm going to leave these in here for another week or two and then pull them all out and begin drying them. But overall, not a bad crop of onions. Kind of small. Would have liked to see them a little bit larger, but again, hopefully in the next couple weeks they'll put some weight on. And I'm not even going to show you the carrot bed because it's just an embarrassment. On the other bed, second lot of beets, growing well. Again, the kale still throwing leaves out. Again, we harvest them every few days. Swiss chard doing well, and cauliflower just starting to put on some weight. And the strawberries still producing. Tons of red berries. Still early in the morning, so the kids haven't come out and raided the strawberry patch yet, so you can still see quite a few red berries yet to come. Pepper plants, the ones that are covered are doing fine. Again, we will start to harvest from this bed shortly as the other one got picked clean from the deer. Cabbages are doing very well. And then the imperial broccoli growing very well. Still no heads yet, but should be producing within the next 3 weeks. And the Savoy cabbages are huge, doing very, very well. Blueberry plants doing very well. Lots of ripe blueberries now. You can see tons of them ripe mixed in with the unripe berries. Again, early in the morning prior to the kids coming out and picking them all. You really notice the difference now that I've put the netting up. The deer leave these plants alone. They really start to put on quite a bit of weight. Without the netting, again, a deer will come and basically clean out all the new growth from this plant. they'll take the berries, but they'll also take all the new growth. So it is quite essential that if you are growing blueberries, you keep them covered and keep the deer off of them. And in this last squash bed, again, the spaghetti squash basically taking over. The butternut squash are doing quite well. Also, quite a few fruits on the spaghetti squash. Not too many have formed yet on the butternut squash. You can see a ton of male flowers on the spaghetti squash. The cucumbers in front are starting to grow up the trellis. Do have to next year we have to plan a little bit differently. I think this bed is going to be exclusively the squash plants, because you just can't get in there and harvest the cucumbers without end up stepping on some of the spaghetti squash, because it just takes over. It's quite impressive. And then the zucchini plant finally starting to produce. Once it does get going, it really the production goes through the roof basically. So these are zucchini plants or the zucchini fruit are really good eaten raw. If you're gonna eat them raw, you pick them when they're about that size, really young. If you let them grow a little bit more, then they're really good grilled. Just put a little bit of oil on them and grill them on the barbecue. They taste fantastic. Well, let's take a look at these squash. I think there's about, for the spaghetti squash, there's about 3 fruit set in the bed. There's one there. Oh, man, if you could see it, there's one there, and then there's a larger one right there. And there's a couple more back there. Again, I'm not really going to go back there. We had 3 plants, and there's about, I don't know, 20 growing tips all over the place. This plant is just taking over the entire bed. Again, it makes it almost impossible to go in and harvest cucumbers. I know there's a ton of pickling cucumbers, and the slicing cucumbers are just starting. We'll get in there and somehow get those cucumbers out of there. On the outside of the bed, there's a ton of squash set. Now we go through and hand pollinate. We check it once every day, every 2 days. We go out and hand pollinate, and we'll hand pollinate repeatedly the same flower if it's open for more than 2 days. We have one there, one there. I might miss them, but there's another one there. There's flowers all over, which is another good sign. There's one there. Their biggest one is right here. It's good, very good size. Where else? There's a few more over here somewhere. There's one there, one there. Yeah, so tons of them. So it's going to be a very good year for spaghetti squash. It's a lot of squash. However, they do keep very well, just stored at room temperature in a dry location. Oh, there's another one growing. Another one growing up there. Store them in a dry location, and they are good for months. I think they're good for about 6 months. They'll just stay good for a long time. Now these ripen up when the skin turns yellow. There's a couple ways you can snip them off when you notice that they're, again, changing that to that yellow color. You can check by also pressing your nail into the fruit, and if it makes a mark, if it makes an indentation, then it's not ready. This skin will turn very woody once the fruit is ripe. You almost need a saw to get through it. But again, they store really well, so it doesn't really matter if you get a whole bunch of them. You eat them. We eat them throughout the entire year. And again, as a temporary measure, we just put up some chicken wire. You don't need much to keep the deer out. They're not very ambitious or forceful when they poke around. So any barrier will keep them out, but it does have to be some form of a barrier. So we will go through and think about how we're going to neatly fence off the tomato plants for next year. Depending on what bed they're in, we'll come up with a solution. Alright guys, that's it for another week. Lots of produce still to harvest. Hopefully we can again pull those onions, pull some strawberries and blueberries in the next few weeks. So until then, see you next time.